Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, the Ojibwe, Innu, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Lynn Nesbitt, and I'm chairing today's panel. Joining me via Zoom on the panel are Kevin Stephenson and Richard Whitbread. Our assessor today is Matthew Harling, and our administrative personnel is Fran Picoto. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence presented at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We will be hearing items 4 and 7 on our docket today. Ms. Picoto, please affirm the assessor's and applicant's testimony.
Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Matthew Harling.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Howard Lindsay McCubbin.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And before we begin, are there any preliminary issues that need to be discussed?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. Then we will start with item number 4 on our agenda. It's file number 24-2898. This is an appeal of the assessment of property, correct?
Yes, a piece of vacant land. Yes, yeah, property.
Okay, thank you. Then Mr. Harling, you may begin with your evidence, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as stated, the file number is 24-2898. The roll number is 120-9755-9200. The property does not have an actual address, but it is located on Taylor Avenue. And the owner of the property is the Manitoba Hydroelectric Board. The 2025 assessed value based on a reference date of April 1st, 2023 is $697,000. If we look below under the property description information, we'll see the property type we're dealing with today is Vindu or vacant industrial. It is zoned for M1 manufacturing light. And the land area is roughly 27,742 square feet. Now, if we turn to page 2 of my brief, you'll just see some location of the subject property. So the top is just a Google Street View or a Google Maps image, just where the red dot is where it's located. And if you look at the bottom of page 2, you get a better idea of just more of an aerial view where the subject's located. Again, with the red dot there, So you can just kind of see kind of where it's situated, just located on Taylor Avenue. Now, if we continue to page 3, we just get a better idea of the actual parcel itself. So at the top is just a more zoomed out photo of the subject. We're again located on Taylor Avenue. And at the bottom, again, just another photo of the subject, just the parcel outline, just so you can see the actual shape, size, and location of the subject, again, where it's situated. So just highlighted in red, there's where the subject property is at the bottom of pages, on page 3. If we turn to page 4, it's just some further photos, just from a different view and angles. So again, at the top there, just same picture, just from a different angle. And at the bottom, again, you can just see kind of a different angle. And then again, you can just see where it's situated on Taylor Avenue. If we turn to page 5, my brief, you'll just see the valuation summary. So essentially, again, we're just assessing this property and its land value, $697,000. And there are no recent sales. The last time the property sold was in August 7th, 2007 for $138,530. Now, if we continue to page 6 of my brief, just showing the zoning. So again, I indicated that this is a M1 zone piece of land. So the top is just more of a zoomed out view of the area. So you can see it's a kind of a multi-zoning area. There are a lot of different property types or zoning types. And at the bottom of page 6, you can just see again the parcel outline and the current zoning, again being M1 zoning. If we turn to page 7, this is again just some description, a base description about M1 zoning, and what it can be, entails the description of it. So again, it's manufacturing light is the type. And then just a brief description again, this district is intended to provide for light manufacturing, processing, service, storage, wholesale and distribution operations, with operations contained within an enclosed building with some limited outside storage. So it's just a brief description of what's can be built on an M1 land. Now if we continue to page 8 of my brief, you'll see this is a table of my land sale comparables, as well as the subject. So in the far left hand of the table, you'll see the subject property, again located on Taylor Avenue. It is vacant industrial land. The land area again is 27,742 square feet, or roughly 0.637 acres, zoned for M1 manufacturing light. And some of the influences that we have are it's a bus route, bus stop, medium traffic, and it has a rail line behind the back of the property. If you look at the bottom of page 8 under the land valuation table there, you'll just see again the area at 27,742 square feet. And we are applying a land rate of $25.12 a square foot, which then again gives us the value of $697,000. So now going back up to the table at the top of the page, so you'll see the 5 comparables. So I'll start with comparable 1. So my first comparable is located on 615 Plinkett Street. This is located in the Mission Industrial portion of the city. It's a vacant industrial parcel of land. The land area is 776 square feet, so it's smaller than the subject, 0.179 acres. Or 0.179 acres. This particular piece of land is zoned M3 manufacturing heavy. And this piece of land sold on December 12th, 2019 for $24.76 a square foot. We continue to comparable number 2. This is located on 720 Erin Street. This is another vacant industrial piece of land. The size is 18,521 square feet, or roughly 0.425 acres. It is zoned for M1 manufacturing light. And one of some of the land influences would be it's on an external corner. And this property sold on June 6, 2017 for $21.60 a square foot. Comparable number 3, this is located on 765 King Edward Street. This is another Vindu vacant industrial piece of land. So it's in the St. James Industrial Park, or St. James Industrial Area. It's 26,891 square feet, or roughly 0.617 acres. It is zoned for M2 manufacturing, and some of the influences are bus stop, bus route, and it's heavy traffic. And this property sold on August 16th, 2022 for roughly $44.62 a square foot. Comparable 4, this is located on 789 McLeod Avenue. This particular property is a VCOM, or vacant industrial commercial. It's 34,579 square feet, or roughly 0.794 acres. The zoning for this one would be C2 commercial community. And some of the land influences are similar to the other comparables: bus route, medium traffic, external corner. And this property sold on August 11th, 2020 for $23.86 a square foot. Lastly, comparable number 5. This is located at 745 King Edward Street. This is just actually just below the comparable number 3, actually. I have some photos of the comparables we'll show shortly. So this one is also Vindu, or vacant industrial piece of land, slightly larger at 37,550 square feet, or roughly 0.862 acres. This particular piece of land is zoned for M2 manufacturing general, and some of the influences are bus stop and bus route. And this particular piece of land sold on January 23rd, 2023 for $39.95 a square foot. So the comparables range anywhere from 2160 to 4462 square foot, which falls within the range of the subject property at 2512. So if we turn to page 9 of my brief, just some photos of the comparisons. So comparable 1, again, this is located on Plunkett. So this is located close to Archibald Street. So this would be the smallest of my comparables, as I mentioned. But again, it's a very similar shape, just a very basic rectangular shape, located in an industrial, Mission Industrial Park area. Turn to page 10. This is comparable number 2. This is again located on 720 Erin Street. So just as I mentioned, it's a corner lot, and the corner is on Wolver Avenue. So so this is just close to like Clifton Street. So this would be very close, just north south. This would be Portage Avenue. So, but again, another industrial area, and you can see just a basic rectangular shaped piece of land. Again, slightly smaller than the subject property. If we go to page 11 of my brief, this is comparable number 3. So this is located on King Edward Street. So this is the most similar in size to the subject at 26,891 square feet. So you can see this is located in King Edward Street, just so that would be Sargent Avenue. So again, primarily, industrial, mixed zoning around here, a lot of industrial, but there are commercial uses as well in the area. And you can see it's just a basic rectangular shape. Comparable 4, this is the one comparable I used. I indicated was this is a commercial, or a VCOM parcel. So this is a different zoning. This area is actually very similar in the same type of layout as the subject, being, it has a bunch of it's very similar zonings around the area. There's residential in the area. It has the commercial as well as industrial. So it's a very similar type of area. So it's worthwhile I'm just kind of show a comparable similar to that. So you can see this one's slightly irregularly shaped. But again, it's got access on, McLeod and Gateway Avenue, but this one's slightly larger, as I indicated, but the rate is roughly 2386 square foot, so falls within the range. And then lastly, comparable number 5. This is actually just below comparable number 3 on King Edward Street again, slightly larger at 37,000 square feet, opposed to 26 for the subject. So yeah, and you can see just a basic rectangular shaped piece of land, just fronting on King Edward Street. So those are just some photos of the comparables, or the photos of the comparisons of the comparable sales I've applied. And if we can go to page 14, my brief, we'll just see the classification liability allocation. So again, we're just assessing this on its land value. It's $697,000. And if we continue on pages 15 and 16, this is just some information regarding some Municipal Assessment Act excerpt information. So that would conclude my presentation, and I am open for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harling. Mr. McCubbin, do you have questions for the assessor?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Harling, if I can get you to turn your attention to page 8 of your presentation, please.
Yeah, comparables, yeah.
Okay. Did you have difficulty finding comparable sales for the subject property?
Like in terms of overall, like size, everything like that, sales price and all that kind of stuff. Like, yeah, I mean, I would say like I said, I think I've shown comparables that we're trying to range. Some are smaller, some are larger, but yeah, I mean, you're never able to find perfect comparables, I guess, but you could say there were some challenges and sometimes finding comparables. Yeah.
Fair enough. Which of the comparisons would you say is your best comparison when related to the subject?
I mean, in terms of, yeah, I guess it's hard to say. Like I said, I'm trying to show a range. I mean, in terms of, if we're trying to say in terms of area, I guess, and size. I guess comparable number 3 would be the closest in size. I guess if I had to pick one, I guess that would be the closest based on that.
And size that does have a relation with respect to market value when it comes to land sales.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, size, shape, location, all those natures. Yeah.
Would you say that motivation is a factor also with respect to what a willing purchaser would be willing to pay? What a purchaser, sorry, would be willing to pay?
I mean, yeah, I hear that a lot with motivation. I mean, I always struggle trying to saying like I understand there's motivation, but I guess when I think about it, I mean, anytime a property is for sale, I feel like there's always going to be some kind of motivation regardless. So yes, I guess you could say motivation would be, but I don't know how you quantify that exactly. But yeah, your motivation is another factor. Yes.
So in other words, different purchasers would have different motivations then when looking at vacant land ready to be developed.
Yeah, whatever they're, obviously when they buy it, they have a reason for whatever they're buying it for, whatever they want to do to develop it, hold on to it. So yeah, they would have their reasonings. Yeah.
Right. And the rate applied to this property, so Marlene, if we go to page 5 of your brief, sorry, going back to page 8 of your brief, the rate applied 2512, is that a model driven rate?
Yes, that would be derived by the model based on, again, our model is derived through sales. So, but yes, it is derived through the model. Yes, correct.
And how would the model, to your best knowledge, how would the model go about choosing a rate for this property?
Well, as I just kind of indicated, it would look at similar sales of properties in terms of similar sizes, ages, or similar sizes, shapes, locations. Those types of factors would be taken into account.
Those are all questions I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Mr. Stephenson, any questions?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Whitbread.
Yes. What are the dimensions of the property, Matthew? Do you have them there?
Apologize, I don't. I could try to give you a rough estimate, like just kind of like the hold on, see if I can find, maybe I can quickly check for you here. Just see here. I guess it'd be maybe if I'm looking, I mean, again, this is very rough, just because I'm just trying to quickly here, but 141 feet by roughly, let's say 183, something like that range.
183?
Yeah.
And that's 183 deep?
Yes, 183 deep, correct, yes.
Right.
I mean, since it's slightly irregular, it's not going to be perfect. Obviously, it might be a little bit, but that's just a very rough estimate.
No, that's fine. I just wanted some idea of what you've got to work with for redevelopment. And that is a vacant lot next door, it looks like, on the right side when I'm looking at the photo from the air.
Yeah, yes, Chris, the one right to the right. Yeah, that's another piece of vacant land, correct.
You know what's on the other side of that lot?
The part, yeah, that's I think well, it's classified as an office property. Yeah, I think there's a bank there and another business there. I can't remember. Yeah.
I don't know. Is 183 feet deep? Is that deep enough for a strip mall, do you think, on this property?
I mean, I guess, like when I look at that piece of land there, there's a bit of a flexible, well, there is an office space there. I mean, I guess you'd have to look at like setbacks and stuff like that. I don't know the exact how much you could build on there. But yeah, I mean, I guess when you look at that other piece of land there, I mean, they've been able to develop there too. So I don't see a reason why you couldn't do similar, but.
And it's residential across the street, if I get.
Yeah, like I said, there's kind of a residential zoning north of it, and then there's some commercial south of it. So yeah, there's kind of a lot of a pocket of different zonings around here.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, Mr. Harling, on one side of this lot, there is a vacant lot, correct?
Correct.
On the other side is a hydro substation.
Correct. What's
on the other side of the hydro substation?
I believe there's it's a strip mall, I guess, a little bit of a, actually, you know what, if you kind of might be able to see one of my pictures, maybe actually. Give me a sec here, apologize.
Okay.
Yeah, if you look at actually page 2,
Page 2.
yeah, you can kind of see at the bottom there, you can kind of see what's beside it. So at the bottom.
Okay. So there's a hydro substation, it looks like.
And then, yeah, on the left-hand side, I think it's another property there.
Yeah, a developed
Yeah,
property.
yeah,
right?
correct. Yeah,
Okay, and then we have the red dot. And
Yeah,
then you said there, and that's the subject.
correct.
And then right beside that, you said there is a vacant lot.
Yes.
So that green space is actually 2 lots,
Yeah, they're 2 separate parcels. Yeah, exactly.
about half and half.
Yeah, if you look at actually page 4 of my brief, you can kind of better idea actually if you want to look. So
Okay, thank you. Sorry for,
no
oh,
problem.
yes, I see.
Yeah.
So this one is, okay, so you can see the hydro substation butting up against it, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Do any of your comps have hydro substations butting up against them?
No, I do not have any comparables that have that.
And then that lot to the, sorry, I don't know my directions when it comes to that. Is that the west or east or whatever?
I guess that would be like I guess it would be, yeah, east. I guess of it you would be looking from
Yeah.
my perspective.
Yeah. Is that developable itself?
I believe it's another piece of hydro and land actually. So
Oh, that's also hydro land.
yeah.
Okay. Or you didn't, maybe you did, and maybe there isn't. Are there any caveats on this land by hydro or
I'd have to
restrictions?
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't do a title search on it or a land title
Okay.
search, so I don't know off the top of my head, unfortunately. So
Okay. So as far as you know, it's just a piece of vacant land that can be purchased by anyone and developed by anyone.
well, yeah, Hydro owns it, so if like they own it, so they could really do whatever they want with it at this point. There's nothing restrictions I am aware of at this time for that. No, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I have no additional questions. Mr. McCubbin.
Thanks, Madam Chair. And I'd like to submit my brief as evidence. And if you can turn to page 2 of my presentation, Madam Chair.
Yep.
The assessor has already gone through the roll numbers, so I don't need to repeat that for the record. The site area is 27,742 square feet. Less than a little more than half an acre, I guess, in size. It's on M1. The 2025 realty assessment is $697,000, and our request is for the assessed value to be lowered to $222,000. Page 3, the intended use of the report and the intended user. I'm not going to go through that. And scope of work done. Page 4 and 5. Governing legislation. On page 6, I'd certainly like to touch on the Manitoba Hydro Act. And I'll read verbatim from the act here, section 43, subsection 2. Corporation as an operating expense shall make annually to any municipality in which land or personal property of the corporation are situated, or in which the corporation carries on business, such grant toward the cost of municipal and school services as the Lieutenant Governor and Council may approve. Now skipping down to 43, subsection 2.2, exemption from municipal taxation. For greater certainty and without limiting any exemption from municipal taxation under the Municipal Assessment Act, corporation and its subsidiaries are exempt from all taxes levied by a municipality on the following properties: conduits, poles, pipes, wires, transmission lines, plants, equipment, and any similar properties owned by the corporation or any of its subsidiaries, or occupied or used by any of them in generation, transmission, or distribution of power, and B, any land on or under which such property is situated. So that's that's sort of muddy because we are this is a grant in lieu of taxes property, and I guess this discussion here is for another day. But it does state that explicitly in the act. If you can go to page 7 of my presentation, Madam Chair, I think the assessor has done a great job explaining the property and its location. He just got some good photographs on page 7. I have similar photographs, and you can see the subject property at the bottom of page 7. You can see the street view of it, but above that you can see the majority of the property is covered, is tree, Madam Chair, and acts as a green space as it exists today. It is zoned M1, as the assessor has said. Subject property, and I'm reading from page 9 of my presentation. Subject property is an irregular shaped vacant land parcel located on the south side of Taylor Avenue, just west of Campbell Street. It does about a hydro substation to the west and commercial development to the east. Now, going to page 10 of my presentation, and this is an important part of, I guess, valuing any type of property, and in particular land, highest and best use of the land. The highest and best use, as we see it, is for the subject property would be a surplus land for Manitoba Hydro. Madam Chair, this land will never be sold. It'll never be traded in the open market. It's specifically there for, if needed, the increased capacity of the substation right next door. So it is limited, severely limited in its use. It should not be looked at as, it should not be compared to properties, or at least if it's compared to properties in the market of similar zoning that are ready for commercial development of any kind. Adjustments have to be made to those sales to arrive at a reasonable value for this property. As I've stated, Hydro will not be selling this land. It's not going to be on the market to be developed for commercial purposes. It's strictly access green space right now, tantamount to a park, or and also it's there to and I know I'm repeating myself, in the event that Hydro needs increased capacity at that substation, they're able to expand into that lot. So the approach is to value. The only approach to value that's applicable, Madam Chair, for this property is direct sales comparison approach. And if you go to page 12 of my presentation, you will see that I have produced 5 comparisons of varying sizes, 1.89 acres, 17.96 acres, 1.42, 0.92, and 25.6 acres. And they're located in different areas of the city. Interestingly enough, the average of the sale prices above in that chart is $22.32 per square foot, with the median being $25.25 per square foot. Now, in relation, how does that relate to the assessor's comparisons? In a sense, is our median is probably very close to it, although he's using different sales. I think his median would be 24.76, which is a better measurement in terms because the mean is just an average of all the numbers, whereas the median is the middle number. So in describing the properties that I've chosen to look at, on page 13, you'll see the description of the property. It's probably sold for 25 square foot, and that's index number 1. Sorry, it's zone CMU, commercial mixed use. The purchaser proposes to construct a 5-story mixed-use building, which will contain both commercial and residential development. The site is superior both developmentally and in terms of location to the subject property. Subject site is smaller in comparison and has a very limited development prospect. Index number 2 is zone C4 and sold for $18.26 per square foot. It's currently being developed with over 70,000 square feet of office and retail space. And over 700 multifamily units will also be constructed. Again, this sale is superior to the subject in terms of development prospects. Index number 3 can be found on page 15, Madam Chair. This site is zone CMU, commercial mixed use, and sold for $25.25 per square foot. It was purchased with the intention of being developed with a mix of office, commercial, hotel, and multifamily units. The index is superior to the subject in terms of location and development prospects. Page 16 shows index 4, which sold for $26.56 per square foot. This is zone CMU, commercial multi-use. And it's a smaller site. The proposal for this site was to construct a car wash, gas bar, and convenience store. Again, we feel this index is superior to subject property. And finally, on page 17, this index is on C4 and sold for $16.30 per square foot. Plans are to develop a big box retail and other mixed uses to supplement smaller CRUs in phase 1 of Polaris Place. Again, this is superior to subject property. So the indices represent vacant land sales of commercial land, which took place within 4 years prior to the reference date. And I've chosen commercial mixed use. The assessor has chosen M1. M1 does allow for commercial uses also, to some extent. We have that situation on St. James Street here in Winnipeg, which is some of the most valuable commercial space in the city is located, and it is zone M, industrial, on St. James Street. So it can be interchangeable. I chose these primarily for giving an idea of what readily developed land would be going for in the city. As I've said, the average sale price per square foot is $22.32, while the median was $25.25. Now going to page 18 of my presentation. It is my view that there were no sales of similar properties to the subject that took place in a reasonable time frame prior to the reference date of April 1st, 2023. All indices above can be developed with several uses, which is not the case of the subject property. The subject site acts as a buffer zone for the hydro substation next to it. It will never be sold or redeveloped for any other purposes other than substation capacity increase, as I've stated. Taking into consideration the subject's lack of prospect for development when compared to the comparables and also its location, size, and zoning, a reasonable rate for the subject would be no more than $8 a square foot, I feel. And This rate is probably 1/3 of the median of the sales that I've shown. And would probably be about 1/3 of the median or thereabouts of the assessor's sales also. It's interesting how our medians are almost the same. So I put it that 1/3 is an appropriate value for this property, given its limited, very limited potential for development. The only development that I'm told by Hydro that will take place on this lot is for a substation increase in capacity, and they don't have any timelines with respect to that. So right now, the space is used as just as green space, and you can see it's heavily treated property. So the current assess on page 19 of my brief, the current 2025 realty assessment is $697,000. Based on the above analysis, the market value of the subject property as of April 1st, 2023, reference date is $222,000. And we ask that the 2025 realty assessment not exceed $222,000. And that's my presentation. And I'm thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. McCubbin. Mr. Harling, do you have questions for the applicant?
Maybe just a few quick questions. I think you kind of alluded to some of them already, but so I understand your positioning on it. So so when it comes to like the comparables you've used, like I know you all use commercial C4 type of properties with that zoning. So was it just the reasoning just because you couldn't find comparables that were the similar zoning? Is that why you chose those comparables for your position?
Not that I couldn't find comparables with similar zoning. It's like I've stated, Madam Chair, the zoning is with respect, even in the subject's area, you can see it's zoned M1, and it's developed further to the east of it with commercial development. So the zoning does come into play, but in terms of development purposes, M1, as I've said, does allow for commercial development, not only industrial, whereas that commercial does not allow for that.
Okay. So I know you've mentioned this multiple times. You mentioned it twice. So you know, I'm mindful of the situation of, you know, what Hydro has it and holds it, what they're doing with it, or their potential is it. I guess my question is there anything, you know, preventing it currently though, if it were? Like, I understand Hydro has no intention of what they're going to do with it, but is there anything preventing it technically from being developed for anything else other than that? Like, is there anything that would prevent it from being developed though?
I guess, well, first of all, Hydro owns the property. And I'm fair of repeating myself here. There's a good chance that increased capacity would be needed in that general vicinity, and that vicinity that the substation services, that area that the substation services. And Hydro won't sell this property specifically for that reason. They acquired it specifically for that reason. And I can say, I guess, no, it won't be developed. It's just, it's, and I'm not sure if a developer would want to purchase a property like this that's in close proximity to a hydroelectric substation to it, just abuts it.
Okay. And so just, and again, I think you kind of mentioned too, the rate you came up with, you just took a third of your overall median to come up with that $8. Is that correct? Or
yes, that's correct. I looked at you know, the property eventually, I imagine somewhere down the line, I don't know what the development horizon is with respect to putting a substation or adding on to it, but it may be developed in the future. But right now,
Okay, you know what, that's all the questions. That's good, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Harling. Mr. Whitbread, do you have questions for the applicant?
No, I'm fine, thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Stephenson?
My questions were just answered. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have a couple questions following up on Mr. Harling's line of thought. You indicated Hydro will not be selling this property. Did you bring any evidence of that?
No, I didn't, Chair, but I'm under oath. And I did speak with a representative from Hydro who is privy to this information. In dealing with the Hydro's representative, I find out there's a lot of information that Hydro has that Hydro would rather retain, so to speak, for various purposes. Hydro deals with a number of issues throughout the city in regards to substations and also underground infrastructure in terms of central gas pipelines. And to answer your question, Madam Chair, I don't have any information from Hydro, but I did speak to a representative of Hydro in regards to this property.
Okay. Do other hydro substations in the city, obviously they differ and they're differing sizes, and I recognize all that, but do they typically maintain a buffer in case of the need to increase their capacity?
That's a good question, Madam Chair. I don't know the answer to that, but I suspect if there's an area that in the city that has additional lands or additional capacity for development in terms of commercial development and residential, I imagine Hydro would look at acquiring lands, or did acquire land in the past to support that infrastructure change based on the growth of the city, so to speak. But to answer your question again, I don't know.
Okay. And I think we heard earlier that there's the hydro substation and then this property and then another piece of land owned by Hydro, correct?
That is correct. Yeah.
So what would be the, well, I know you've already answered my question because you said they're never going to be selling it. Okay, and again, following up from Mr. Harling's line of thought, you indicated that you took 1/3 of the median sale value of your comps to determine your $8 rate. Why not 50%? Why not 25%? Why did you choose 1/3?
Exactly, and I thought about that too, and I looked at. I thought 25% was getting a little low. It can be developed eventually for the sole purpose of a hydro substation, or it will be developed eventually sometime in the future. Maybe not in my or your future, but down the road. But so when you look at the comparisons that both the assessor and I have produced, Madam Chair, you have to make some logic. You have to draw some logic with respect to what those properties are selling for, and the type of developments and the income that can be generated from those ownerships versus what can be generated here, or what a private person, if they didn't. Well, it will never be developed. So it's a sort of a judgment call, Madam Chair. It is a judgment call. It's based on my experience. But I think 25% was too low and 50% was certainly too high, I think, based on its development potential. So I came somewhere in the middle. 33% or 1/3.
Okay, thank you. That I have no additional questions.
May I ask another one? Just
Of course.
quick question. Given the circumstances you described,
Sorry, can you speak up?
can you hear me?
Yes, now I can.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's
Yeah,
okay.
given the circumstances you described, and you may not have an answer. Those two properties adjacent to the Manitoba Hydro Station, why is that not all just rolled into one roll number and that land shown as excess or surplus land? Given there's an infrastructure under the land.
Sorry, can you repeat the last part of the question, please?
Are you having trouble hearing me?
It's just, it could be my hearing.
Given the description you've given us of the two properties adjacent to the hydro substation, would it not make sense to put all three properties under one roll number and show that land as excess or surplus land?
Yeah, you bring up a good point. Hydro's been trying to get the city to amalgamate a lot of its land or merge a lot of its land. And in the city, for example, the corridors, etc., and pieces of lands, just merge them into one roll number and place one value on them. And it's easier to deal with the property that way. And we've requested it, Hydro has requested it, but it's a good question. We would like to, Hydro would like a lot of its properties to be merged, and it's easier to manage that way.
Has it been requested with respect to this role, Mr. McCubbin?
I don't know, Madam Chair, but I know there's been talk about the merging of the corridors, the hydro corridors within the city of Winnipeg. And the corridors are essentially what it is. It's where the hydro lines actually run from the substation to wherever they're feeding power to.
Okay,
Power lines.
this isn't a corridor.
No, this is not a corridor. No.
Do you mind if Matthew weighs in on this question, Madam Chair? Or the
Perhaps Matthew, Mr. Hurling does have an answer, sure.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, some of those hydro corridors that Mr. McCubbin mentioned, yes, there was some very preliminary discussions about that. So, but in terms of this particular one, I don't have any current information on why this one hasn't been. Typically, when it comes to merging pieces of land, yes, we have to get permission from the property owner before we can do that. So, as far as this piece of land, I don't have any information if they've requested it at this time. So, but yeah, some of the corridors I am familiar with that. There's some preliminary talks to maybe do that, but yeah, unfortunately, this one I haven't heard anything at this time. So,
it would simplify our life in not having three valuations.
Yeah, well, no, of course, I agree with you.
Yeah.
There's a lot of there's other ones too I've dealt with for the same difference. I totally agree. So,
I have no other comments or questions.
Thank you so much. All right, then I have no additional questions either. So, summation, Mr. Hurling?
no, I think I'm good. I'll just let the board make their decision based on the evidence. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCubbin.
I'm good, thanks, Madam Chair. I think the board is well aware of the situation.
Okay, thank you. Then that will conclude item number 4. All right, we'll now go to item number 7. And that file number is 24-2931. Mr. Hurling.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Stated, the file number is 24-2931. The roll number is 10006467000. The property doesn't have an address on file, and the owner is Central Gas Manitoba Incorporated. The 2025 assessed value based on reference date of April 1st, 2023 is $1,213,000. Look on below page 1 of my brief under the property description. See the property type is Vindu or vacant industrial. And below that, you'll see it's zoned M3 manufacturing heavy. And the land area is roughly 120,056 square feet, or roughly 2.756 acres. If we turn to page 2 of my brief, you'll see the subject location. So at the top is just a Google photo view. You can see where the red dot is again, where I've shown the subject, just to kind of show an overview of where it's located. So just fronting Sterling Line Way, and just adjacent to it is Keniston Boulevard. So if we look at bottom of page 2, we just get more of another aerial view another aerial view, just again to show in relation to where the subject's located, just an overall situation, again where the red dot is. Now if we turn to page 3 of my brief, you'll see the subject property itself. So at the top again, where it's located, highlighted in red. So you can see here it's just a regularly shaped parcel, kind of a tier shaped or something, if you will, I guess, piece of land. So again, just fronts on single Sterling Line, and then just on the corner of Keniston Boulevard. So you get an overview of the subject property. If we turn to page 4, this is just another angle or another view of the subject, just to get an idea of where it's located and the shape of it. And the bottom page 4 is just kind of it's just a street view, just of showing just a piece of land, how it fronts on Sterling Line. So you can just get a kind of an idea of the overall surroundings and shape and location of the subject. If we turn to page 5 of my brief, we'll just see the valuation summary. We're just assessing the property and its land value at $1,213,000, and there have been no recent sales on the subject. Now, if we turn to page 6 of my brief, you'll just see the zoning. So this particular piece of land is zoned M3 for manufacturing heavy. Just a brief description here. I'll just read it. So this district is intended to provide for light or heavy industrial development, including heavy manufacturing, storage, major freight terminals, waste and salvage resource extraction, processing, transportation, major utilities, and other related uses, particularly those that require very large buildings, frequent heavy trucks for supplies, shipments, or that may require substantial mitigation to avoid sound, noise, and odor impacts to neighboring properties. So that's just a brief description of what entails on M3 zoned land. Now if we turn to page 7 of my brief, just to compare the table of my land sales comparables as well as the subject. So in the far left-hand corner, we can see the subject. Again, it's Vindu or vacant industrial. The land area is 120,056 square feet, 2.756 acres. It is zoned M3 manufacturing heavy, as I had indicated. And some of the land influences would be it's on a bus route and heavy traffic. And if we look at the bottom of page 7 of the land valuation table, again, you'll see the area, and we're assessing at a land rate of $10.10 square foot, which gives us the $1,213,000. Okay, so now if we go back to the table at the top, we can just go through the comparables. So my first comparable is located at 198 Phillips Street. This is another Vindu or vacant industrial parcel of land. It's 55,739 square feet, or roughly 1.280 acres. This particular zoning on this parcel is MMU, or mixed manufacturing use. It is on a bus route with heavy traffic and a rail line adjacent or behind it. And this one sold on March 18th, 2021 for $17.94 a square foot. This one would be the smallest of my comparables, so I'm mindful of the fact that being smaller would have a higher rate just based on that alone. But again, as I said, going through my further pages, we'll go through some of the pictures as well. So comparable number 2, this is located on 830 Century Street. This is another vacant industrial piece of land. It's 84,262 square feet, or 1.934 acres. It is zoned M2 manufacturing general, and some of the influences it's on a bus route, heavy traffic, and it has an internal corner. And this one sold on May 22nd, 2019 for $15.43 a square foot. Comparable number 3, this is located at 1285 Wilkes Avenue, another vacant industrial parcel of land. It's 157,621 square feet, or roughly 3.618 acres. It's zoned for M2 manufacturing general, and some of the influences are its light traffic with a rail line adjacent. And this one's the oldest of my sales, and sold on January 2017 or 2014 for $11.42 a square foot. I'll go through some of the pictures when I'm describing more of these as I go along. Comparable number 4, this is located at 1420 Waverly Street, another Vindu piece of land, 207,777 square feet, or roughly 4.77 acres. It's zoned for M2 manufacturing general use, and some of the influences would be a bus stop, bus route, and heavy traffic. And this parcel sold on March 24th, 2016 for $11.79 a square foot. And then lastly, comparable number 5. This is located on Inkster Bowl it's another piece of vacant industrial land. It's in the Inkster industrial location of the city. 285,796 square feet, or roughly 6.561 acres. This one actually has a multi-zoning. It's a C2 commercial community and M1 manufacturing light. And some of the influences would be heavy traffic, external corner, and no sewer, no water. And this particular piece of land sold on June 20th, 2019 for $9.76 a square foot. So some of the comparables I've shown, obviously some are larger, some are smaller. You know, the sales range from 976 square foot to 1543 a square foot. So there's some variation in that. So it does bracket within the comparable, within the subject at $10.10 a square foot. So now if we turn to page 8, we can go through some of the pictures. So comparable sale 1, as I indicated, is on Phillips Street. So so this is slightly irregularly shaped. I'm mindful of the subject being, more irregular shaped, if you will. This is again the smallest of the comparables, so I'm mindful of the fact of being smaller, that would have some impact on the sale rate as well. Again, being on McPhillips, it would be a very similar busy street comparable to this Sterling line in the Kenniston area of the city. Comparable number 2, this is located on Century Street. So this comparable, I'm again another one I'm mindful of the fact of it's much more square shaped, so it's much more good shape. Development use would be good. It's got actually access on both sides of Century and Bradford Street, so I'm mindful of that. Again, and it's slightly smaller, so the fact it's sold for more would be I think that's warranted as well. Now comparable 3. Now this is the oldest one, as I indicated, sold in 2014. Now this is the closest to the subject property. If you actually look at the top, you can actually kind of see how close it is in relation to the subject. So I'm mindful of the fact it's an older sale. Again, it's a regularly shaped piece of land, very similar in size to the subject on Wilkes Avenue. So, an older sale, but it did sell for $11.42 a square foot back then. So there's some relations and comparisons in terms of the shape and such, but I'm mindful of that. If we turn to page 11, you'll see my comparable 4. Again, this is located on Waverly Street. So again, close into the relation to the subject property. Again, I would not dispute this would be slightly superior in the sense of, the shape. It is still a regular shape, but it does have usability in terms of the way it's shaped, in terms of access and such. So again, just kind of showing another comparable in the area. And then lastly, comparable number 5. And I apologize, comparable number 4 is larger too. So, so last comparable 5 here. So this is located on Inkster Boulevard. So again, here more of a rectangular shaped piece of land. It is notably larger though in the subject, about 100,000 square feet larger, roughly 3 acres larger in size. So yeah, this one definitely similar in terms of the fronting of a major street, on Inkster. But again, it does have a good, good shape compared to the subject. So I'm mindful of that. So, overall, just looking at the comparables, it's hard to find, when it comes to a regularly shaped parcel, that's, I'm mindful of that. It's very difficult to find comparables sometimes of exactly the same, right? Especially being when it's, the shape of this. So I'm mindful of that. So, so I try to show some comparables, some smaller, some larger, some, regularly shaped, but then you're never going to find a comparable that's exactly the same, obviously. So, but, so those are just some descriptions and some photos of the comparables I've applied for the subject here. So, we go to page 13. We'll just see again the classification liability allocation, just assessing on its land value at $1,213,000. And if we just go through pages 14 through 16, it's just some further information regarding the Municipal Assessment Act and Municipal Assessment Act excerpts. So that overall would conclude my presentation, and I'm open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harlan. Mr. McCubbin, do you have questions for the assessor?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Harling, if I can get you to turn to page 7 of your brief, please.
Page 7, yep.
And just before I ask you questions on these sales, you didn't place a value on this property, did you?
No, just like the previous property, it is model drive, is that correct?
It's model driven, right? And you merely chose sales to support that model driven rate. Did you?
Well, I wouldn't say merely, but yeah, like basically I've looked at comparables as similar as possible in terms of, again, size, shape, those type of factors. But yes, yeah.
Did you look at the utility at all of the property, the subject property, when choosing these comparisons?
No, there's no, I mean, I looked at, you know, what do you mean by like utility? What can you maybe?
The use, what the property can be used for.
I did not.
Property.
No, there was no, I mean, you took into account, I looked into it, but there's nothing, no, there's no, I don't base the comparison on utility alone, I guess. So no, I guess that wasn't a factor that took, you know, significant impact on, no.
What would you say is your best comparable on page 7?
Again, you know what, I don't think that there's a best comparable. I'm just gonna rely on all 4 of the comparables. It's a range, so I don't really have a best comparable, so.
Those are all questions I have left.
Thank you, Mr. McCubbin. Mr. Whitbread, do you have questions for the assessor?
Yes. Could you again give me the dimensions of this strange looking property?
Yeah, this one might be a bit more difficult. I guess I'll just try my best. Like again, this is going to be very, very, you know, rudimentary. If I measure from like the top of the, like if you actually want to go to page 4, just kind of get, we'll see following along here.
Yeah, I'm looking at the west end of it.
Okay, so like just the, I guess the length from the very top where it's more even, that's like roughly, let's see here, 1,100 square feet, let's just say, from the very top.
1,100 square feet or 1,100
feet, sorry, 1,100 feet, sorry, apologize.
Thank you. Okay.
And I guess the portion fronting on Kenniston, again, it's a kind of a hard one to get, but I'll do my best. Let's just say 50 or 173.
173.
Yeah, and then yeah, like I mean that again, I'll just leave it at that. I think it's gonna be hard to measure because obviously you can see it tails out, so but that's the best I can kind of give you, I guess.
Oh no, that's fine. A rough feeling is what I was looking for.
Sure.
Access at that point would probably be impossible off Kenniston, correct? If it were to be developed?
I mean, there is a road actually. I mean, I know you can't see this, but if you actually, when you turn off of Sterling onto, there's a road access there. But I mean, you're right. It would be yeah, it would probably be more difficult. I don't disagree with you. Yeah.
I'm saying off Kenniston because
off Kenniston. Oh, correct. Yes, yes,
right
yes.
on the corner.
Yes, correct. Yes, yeah. Yeah.
Certainly, lots of potential for access off Sterling Lyon.
Yes, but the Kenniston, correct. Yes.
Right. Okay. And what can you see being developed on that property?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm not gonna sit here and say I know. Like, I'm sure Mr. McCubbin would have more questions related to that. So, but yes, I'm very mindful of the fact it's a very irregular shaped and would have some more limited uses than a square shaped piece of land, if you will. Yeah. So.
Now, I don't remember hearing this in your evidence, but I think somewhere in this, the owner of this property is Central Gas.
Correct. Yeah. So that would be, again, it's another hydro-owned property, basically. Yeah. So.
Right. And do you know if there's any infrastructure, major infrastructure, given what it was before? Is there any major infrastructure left under that piece of property? Do you know that?
You know what? I don't think that's something I can speak to because I don't have that information. I think Mr. McCubbin would have more insight in that than me. So.
And do you have any information that would suggest because of its previous occupation, there would be any restrictions on use of this particular parcel?
Again, I don't have any particular information on specific restrictions that I know of. Again, that might be something best to maybe Mr. McCubbin might have a bit more information on that.
Accepted. Okay, I have no further questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Whitbread. Mr. Stephenson?
My questions regarding use were answered, but I do have a question about page 14 on your brief.
Sure. Yep.
So 22.1 and then subsection 5. Tell me what that means.
Page 14, apologize. Oh, again, this is just to kind of, this is what Mr. McCubbin alluded to previously when he was speaking to his property. Again, this property is a grant. It's a grant. It's a payment in lieu taxes essentially. So it's just different way that they pay. So, yeah. So there's really, I mean,
do they pay taxes on this property or just local improvement?
Well, they pay like a different way of paying taxes, but yeah, it's not taxes per se, but it's a grant they pay essentially. So.
So you don't know if there's any use by Central Gas or Hydro on this property. Future use, what what do you think the possibilities would be? Like selling it to the owner that's adjacent to it, I guess would be the most
Well, I guess I'll just kind of give the interesting enough that the property just, I guess, if you could say north of it, actually is also owned by Central Grass. So it's all owned by the same. So
okay. Is there any use on that other property, like the adjacent property?
there is, I mean, there's some structures and buildings there, but mostly it's primarily vacant. So, but again, that's yeah, there's yeah, I know it's another situation of amalgamating, but there's some things with hydro on that one that maybe Mr. Coven can go more to depth maybe. So
Maybe I'm confusing it with a property that they would run functions on there, like with big tents and stuff.
yeah, that piece of land actually, yeah, that's where that I think Cavalli was on there at one point years ago. Yeah, so they use it for like functions, but there is some from the information aerial views we have, there is some structures on there further north of the property. I apologize.
Okay. So they're both owned by Central Gas right
correct.
now.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. No further questions.
Okay, I had some of the same questions. So again, has there been any discussions with Hydro about amalgamating these two parcels, or would there be restrictions to doing that?
Again, I don't have any current information on that. I believe myself and Mr. McCubbin talked briefly about it, but I can't remember that conversation. So maybe he might have some more insight. But yeah, at this time, there's always sometimes when it comes to amalgamating these, there are certain restrictions on how we can amalgamate things depending on, obviously in this case, it's the same owner, so that would be not an issue. But yeah, but I don't disagree with you. I'm not sure the reason why it hasn't been at this time.
Okay. And I know this strays a little bit from this specific property, but what is the use of the property just north of it, the adjacent?
Yeah, like again, do I have any pictures of it? Let me just take a look here. I can't remember if I've shown. Yeah, if we look at actually page 3, you can kind of get an idea. At the top there, you can kind of see it's like some structures on there, I guess, if you will. It's hard to see because it's not zoomed in very much, but it's mostly just vacant land. I mean, I think there's a few structures on there, so I'm not sure what they're using for this time, but it's currently it's mostly pretty much vacant for the most part. So yeah, but there is some structures on it.
Okay, perhaps Mr. McCubbin can answer that.
Yeah.
And it's not serviced?
As far as I know,
water?
You know what? I can quickly check. I don't believe it is. Don't see anything that shows that. No. The one above it, I believe, is, but not this one. So.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Harling. Mr. McCubbin.
Thanks, Madam Chair. If you can turn to page 2 of my presentation, please. The roll number has already been stated for the record. The site area is 121,968 square feet. As Mr. Harlan said, it is zone M3. We're dealing with an assessment year of 2025. With the reference date being April 1st, 2023. The current assessed value is $1,213,000, and we're asking that value be reduced to a value of $122,000. On page 3 of my presentation, intended use of the report and the intended user. Page 4 is the scope of work. 5 also, and I did touch on the governing legislation with respect to the Manitoba Hydro Act on page 6, so I'm not going to go over that again. On page 7, you can see it's a similar map to the subject, similar, I guess, somewhat similar aerial view of the subject property is to the assessor's photographs. The shape of this property, Madam Chair, can best be described as irregular. Not very irregular, not somewhat irregular, just irregular. You can look at the property, you can see it's irregular in shape. It's tantamount to a corner cut, if you will. In terms of its shape and somewhat size. If you can turn to page 7 of, page 9 of my presentation. It's an irregular shaped vacant land parcel located in the northwest corner of Sterling Line Parkway and Kenniston Boulevard. The parcel is long and narrow, and is comparable to a corner cut, as I've said. Central gas infrastructure that services the city lies under the property. I'm not going to give you a percentage of what, but it's a substantial amount. It lies under the subject property, and the surrounding land uses are a mixture of retail and industrial. So, Madam Chair, this property will never be developed. Never. It's already developed somewhat with central gas infrastructure beneath the surface of this property. Hydro will never sell this property, or will they ever let anyone locate or disturb the soil on this piece of property? For obvious reasons. The highest and best use of the property is its current use, and its current use is housing central gas infrastructure, so to speak, beneath it. And that's the highest and best use. That's all it can be used for. So this property should not be compared to properties in the open market that are ready to be developed with various ventures, such as commercial or residential or industrial for that matter, although it's zoned M3. The M3 zoning is immaterial in this case. So again, if I can turn your attention to page 11 of my presentation, I've used the direct comparison approach in trying to ascertain value for the subject property. And on page 12, you can see some sales that I have produced there. Again, that are similar to the sales, or exactly the same sales that I produced in my last presentation. I'm not going to go through these sales. I'll spare you that. We've gone through them already. What I can say, Madam Chair, is although the sales that I have produced, the average sale price is $22.32 a square foot, and the median is $25.25. This property will never be developed. It's already developed with underground infrastructure from Central Gas. Given its shape, size, location, etc., we feel a nominal value should be placed on this property. A nominal value. Nominal value being $1 a square foot. I think I would leave it at that, Madam Chair, and I'm open to questions with respect to this property. I ask that the property value be reduced to $122,000.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. McCubbin. Mr. Harling, do you have questions for the applicant?
I guess just one, I guess. So, I'm mindful of this one, Mr. McCubbin, and some of the limitations of it and what it's used for and such like that. So, I guess my only question is just so that nominal value you came up with? How did you derive that, I guess, or what did you base that on, I guess, or?
Nominal meaning it has, very little or no value whatsoever compared to market value. So, and generally, when we place a nominal value in a property, it's usually about $1 a square foot. It's been that way for years. Doesn't change. It's just you're trying to put an assessed value on the road that states that yes, there is a property there. We should be assessing it, but it's a nominal value, so we have to place a value on it, and $1 a square foot has been used for years as a nominal value.
Okay, and that's something that has that been Hydro's position, I guess, all along with this piece of land, I guess, in previous years and such, or no, or?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure what Hydro's position is in previous years. I haven't dealt with it in previous years.
Okay, that's all the question I had then. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hurling. Mr. Stephenson, do you have a question for the applicant?
Yes, you referenced infrastructure. Can you elaborate on the infrastructure that's there?
Madam Chair, I would rather not elaborate more than I've elaborated already in regards to what's subsurface on this property.
Okay, well, you only said the word infrastructure, so you're referencing infrastructure.
Sorry.
Asking for an
Okay,
explanation of what it is.
Sorry, infrastructure with respect to central gas pipes.
Are there property restrictions on this property?
Oh yeah, I will never. You cannot bore. You can't drill a hole in this property. You can't do anything with this property.
Is there any evidence to support
there
that?
is green space. Again,
have you provided any evidence to support that?
No, but again, this is, I'm under oath, Madam Chair. I have spoken with a representative from Hydro, and I do believe them to be true, telling me the truth. Again, I tried to get something from Hydro with respect to various infrastructure that's below this site, and they weren't.
Was the same infrastructure on the adjacent property?
No, the adjacent property doesn't have any of that type of infrastructure. As a matter of fact, the adjacent property, I'm told, and I don't know what it's being listed at, or Hydro is trying to sell a part of that property. I'm told, to no avail. No one wants. For some reason, I don't know if it has to do with this specific parcel that you can't do anything and you need egress and ingress over this parcel, or you can get around it. But that, what I've been told by a Hydro representative is that part of the property to the north would be open. They're looking at putting it on the market.
Do you know the history? Was this property subdivided recently, or is it?
I don't know, Madam Chair.
From your comment, just to enable the sale of the other property, right? If there's infrastructure, that's why it's not amalgamated now, right? But maybe that recently happened. That's fine.
Yeah, the assessor maybe. That's a good question. As a matter of fact, and the assessor may be able to answer that question for me because I'm not privy to that.
Maybe help us understand why it seems backwards to us, right, on what we were thinking. But
for sure.
One more question. So I think I understand that you're not paying taxes on these properties. What's the benefit derived by lowering the value here for Central Gas or Hydro if you're not even paying taxes?
Well, there's no taxes per se, but there are grants. It's from one entity of government to the next, one level of government, so to speak, Crown Corporation to the next level. And when monies change hands, it's generally in the form of a grant. And that grant would represent what the value of that property is with respect in terms of taxes, with respect to the current mill rates and everything else. So the grant would be somewhat equal to the value of the grants would be equal to what if this property was owned by a private individual, what that private individual would be paid in tax, would be paying the city in taxes.
No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stephenson. Mr. Whitbread, questions for the applicant?
A couple. I'm looking at page 643, 2.1. It implies in this grant by subsidiary that there's an amount paid. Just bear with me. See, it feels like there's an implication shall annually make to any municipality or subsidiary carries on business such a grant towards the cost of municipal and school services.
I'm sorry, Mr. Whitbread.
Sorry, I'm
I'm
reading.
having difficulty. I don't know if it's the tone of your voice or maybe the volume. I'm gonna try to get.
I'm going to address that. Sorry,
Sorry.
I was reading to myself.
Okay, sorry.
I'm trying to understand the basis on which the grant is made. Is it on the value of the land? Is it on the square footage? And do you know how much the grant for this particular piece of property is?
I don't know, Madam Chair, but if memory serves me correct, a grant is equal to what a private individual would pay if the property was assessed privately. If the property was owned privately and assessed at, say, 1,213,000, whatever taxes that generated, the mill rate generates from that assessment would be the grantable amount, I would suspect.
So it may be to Hydra's advantage to have as low a value assessed on this property as possible.
Well, Hydro is not shying away from grants in lieu of taxes whatsoever, but they are logical with respect to the values of their properties and what it would represent in the open market as of January 1st, 2023. Sorry, April 1st, 2023. So to answer your question, it's all about the value of the property itself. And as you can see, this property is long and narrow. It represents, it's tantamount to a corner cut.
I understand what you're saying, but it is a business still, and financial considerations are important when you're conducting business. So back to my question, it's possibly in their best interest to have the lowest possible land value assessed on this property. Is that not correct? Or does that not make sense?
On this property, are you speaking on this property specifically or all of Hydro properties throughout Manitoba?
Let's just talk about this property because
This specific property, it's their intention to pay the lowest amount because of the shape of the property, its marketability. It can't be marketed. You can't thread on the property, so to speak. You can't bore a hole in the property. It's very regular in shape and size. So they're looking at what a market value would be for a property like this. If say the city wanted to pick up a property like this, it would probably be a dedication of some sort from a developer with respect to corner cut. To answer your question, Hydro is looking for a reasonable value with respect to this specific subject property here. And a reasonable value we feel is a nominal value, given its shape, its size, its location, and what's beneath the surface of this land.
Thank you. Thank you. You've testified all of that. The second question would be along the lines of this property and the previous property. I'm curious in that you seem to have changed your approach. You said all the same words about the previous property, but you're coming up with a nominal value of $1 here versus an $8 valuation on the last property. And I know we're not to compare properties, but can you comment about your change in thinking for this nominally valued property?
Change in thinking would be when you look at the property, there's not a substation in it. Nothing will be built on it. It's highly irregular in shape. We know, and Hydro knows that it's valid, that the properties will be valued and reasonable rates will be placed on Hydro's property throughout the city and throughout the province, as a matter of fact. But when it comes down, and us and Hydro are still in the same vein, looking at the marketability or the shape of a property as it pertains to the value of a property. We're not saying that these properties don't have any value, but this one specifically, we're saying has a nominal value because of its highly irregular shape, and the fact that it's acting as a green space right now, Madam Chair. Nothing will ever be built on this property. You can't tamper with this property, so to speak. I'm not sure, but that's the difference between these two properties, and that's why we have two different values. We do realize that the property on Taylor that we previously spoke about, somewhat irregular, but I would say more uniform, more uniform property, and you know, comparing it to other uniform properties down the street or throughout the city. And then again, you look at development potential, is what will be developed on that property. Well, a hydro substation, something will be developed there, so we have to make a judgment call as to with respect to what the value of that property is, and that the value of that property we spoke about, and it's obviously at $8 a square foot. This specific property, we feel should be a nominal value, and hopefully I'm answering your questions. I'm not sure.
Somewhat. Some of these are hard for you to answer because you don't control the property. I'm thinking, for example, just throwing it out, that down the road, I would like to see the big station at Grant and Stafford moved out of that residential area, and this would be an ideal location to put a big hydro substation or whatever they call them. So anything is open to sort of hypothesis, and that's not a question; it's just a statement.
Sure.
I don't need an answer because I know you can't give me one. Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Whitbread. Mr. McCubbin, I'm also looking at your $1 rate. I'm sure Hydro/Centra Gas has pipelines running all around the city. How are they valued?
Well, some of it is not even valued because it's running on on city land, city infrastructure. You know, it's not being valued. The lands are city streets, could be parks, could be, there's various properties with respect to gas distribution that
And where it's not under civic lands,
pardon me?
where it's not under city-owned lands?
I don't have any information on that, Madam Chair. I'd just be speculating right now.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so there was several questions asked, and that's great. I had many of the same questions, so thank you. I have no additional questions then. Mr. Harling, summation for you?
No, I think yeah, I think we've heard enough about it. I think, yeah, so I think I'm good. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Harling. Mr. McCubbin?
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, then that's great then. We have heard all items scheduled and this hearing is now adjourned.
Right.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harling and Mr. McCubbin, for your presentations today.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Hey, everybody. Thank you.
Have a good long weekend.
You too.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks.
Panel members, would you like to take a 10-minute recess once our feed is down?